The growing backlash against FIFA's private investment proposal has a new twist.
What if the biggest decision in the history of the FIFA World Cup was not about a trophy, but about Lionel Messi? What if, after everything that happened around Argentina, FIFA suddenly decided that the story was not over? And what if the cases, the controversies, the accusations, and the unresolved disputes surrounding Argentina were all heading toward one final decision? A decision that could change the way the world remembers Messi's final World Cup chapter. Because right now, one question is becoming impossible to ignore. Could FIFA actually give Argentina the recognition and relief that its supporters have been demanding? Or is there something much bigger happening behind the scenes? The 2026 World Cup ended with Spain defeating Argentina 1-0 in the final, but the story did not end with the final whistle. Lionel Messi was at the center of the tournament once again, and FIFA itself highlighted his historic achievements throughout the competition. Messi continued to break World Cup records and remained one of the defining figures of Argentina's campaign. And then came the most important part: the controversy, the arguments, the disciplinary investigations, and the questions that refused to disappear. FIFA has since opened disciplinary proceedings involving Argentine players and staff following incidents connected to the World Cup final. Leandro Paredes, Nahuel Molina, and assistant coach Roberto Ayala are among those facing charges, while Argentina's federation is also facing scrutiny over other incidents during the tournament. But here is where this story takes a completely different turn. Because what if the final decision is not simply about punishment? What if FIFA is trying to close the entire chapter? What if the goal is not only to determine who was wrong, but to find a solution that allows Argentina and Messi to move forward? Imagine the announcement. FIFA headquarters. The cameras are rolling. The football world is waiting. And FIFA President Gianni Infantino steps forward. Infantino is not a minor figure in this story. He is the president of FIFA and the head of the organization that controls the world's biggest football competition. So imagine him standing in front of the cameras and saying something that nobody expected: that the Argentina situation must be handled fairly, that every case must be reviewed, that every player deserves due process, and that the final outcome must protect the integrity of football while also bringing the controversy to an end. Suddenly, this is no longer just about Messi. It becomes a question about justice, a question about whether football's biggest stars are judged by the same standards as everyone else. And that leads to another question. If FIFA has the power to punish Argentina, could FIFA also have the responsibility to correct something if the review shows that mistakes were made? This is where Lionel Messi becomes more than a football player. Because Messi's 2026 World Cup story was already historic. He entered the tournament carrying the weight of an entire nation and the expectations of millions of supporters. FIFA recorded another extraordinary milestone for Messi during the tournament as his scoring record continued to grow. But imagine ending that story with controversy instead of closure. Would that really be the final chapter? Or would FIFA want to leave behind a different legacy? A legacy where disputes are settled, where evidence is reviewed, where players are heard, and where the final decision is based on rules rather than pressure. And then there is another powerful figure in this story: Donald Trump. Trump was present at the 2026 World Cup final between Spain and Argentina at MetLife Stadium alongside FIFA leadership. The White House officially documented his attendance and his presence during the final and trophy ceremony. But his presence creates a fascinating question. Why was the American president sitting at the center of football's biggest night? What influence can a political leader have when the world's biggest sporting organization is dealing with a global controversy? There is no reliable evidence that Trump ordered FIFA to make a decision in Messi's favor, and that distinction matters. But his involvement in the World Cup, his public presence, and his relationship with FIFA leadership make the political dimension impossible to ignore. Because when football, politics, global influence, and one of the most famous athletes on the planet appear in the same story, people naturally start asking questions. Was he trying to help? Was he trying to calm tensions? Was he simply supporting the tournament? Or could his influence, even indirectly, have helped create an environment where Argentina's situation received extraordinary attention? No one should confuse presence with proof. But the question itself is powerful, and that is exactly what makes this story so interesting. Now imagine FIFA reaching a final conclusion. Not a secret deal, not a political favor, not a decision made because someone is famous, but a formal resolution after reviewing the cases. Imagine FIFA saying that the disciplinary matters must be resolved according to evidence and regulations. Imagine some allegations being upheld and others being reduced or dismissed. Imagine Argentina receiving a final ruling that closes the disputes rather than allowing them to follow the team for years. And imagine Messi standing at the center of that moment.
Not because FIFA gave him special treatment, but because his name became inseparable from one of the most dramatic chapters in modern football. Would fans see that as justice? Would critics accept it? Or would they immediately ask another question? Did FIFA really act independently? That is the line FIFA cannot afford to cross, because the moment the public believes a superstar received different treatment simply because he is Lionel Messi, the credibility of the entire process comes under pressure. But the opposite is also true. If the evidence supports Argentina and FIFA follows its own rules, then refusing to correct an injustice simply because the controversy is complicated would create another problem. So what is the real goal? Punishment? Protection? Reputation? Or justice? That may be the biggest question of this entire story. And while all of this is happening, Gianni Infantino himself is facing a much wider storm around FIFA leadership. FIFA is currently dealing with major opposition to Infantino's controversial proposal involving the commercial rights of major competitions, a plan that has triggered strong resistance from UEFA and other football bodies. That means the FIFA president is already operating under extraordinary pressure. So imagine having to make one of the most sensitive decisions involving Argentina, Messi, disciplinary proceedings, and the legacy of the World Cup, while FIFA itself is facing a major political and governance battle. Could that make the Argentina decision even more important? Could it become a test of Infantino's leadership? Could the world be watching not only what FIFA decides, but how it decides? And then comes the ultimate question. What does Lionel Messi want? Does he want another award? Another honor? Another special decision? Or does he simply want his final World Cup chapter to end with unanswered questions surrounding Argentina? Because sometimes the greatest football stories are not about winning another trophy. Sometimes they are about how the story ends. Messi has already achieved what generations of Argentine players could only dream about. His legacy is already enormous. But the final chapter of a career this historic cannot be separated from controversy, pressure, and the decisions made around it. And that is why this story is bigger than one player. It is about Argentina, it is about FIFA, it is about Infantino, it is about the disciplinary cases, it is about political attention, and yes, it is also about Trump and the extraordinary role he played simply by being present at the biggest football event on American soil. But until FIFA officially announces the outcome of the relevant cases, one thing remains clear. No one can honestly say that Messi has been officially granted some special right by FIFA. Not yet. What we can say is that Argentina has become one of the biggest stories in football after the 2026 World Cup, and FIFA now has to deal with disciplinary matters that could shape how the tournament is remembered. So now the question goes directly to FIFA. What happens next? Will the charges lead to serious punishment? Will some cases be dismissed? Will Argentina receive a final resolution? Will Messi's World Cup legacy become part of that discussion? And could Gianni Infantino make a decision that changes the entire narrative? Because one announcement could end the controversy or create an even bigger one. And maybe that is the real story. Not whether Lionel Messi gets special treatment, not whether Argentina escapes punishment, but whether FIFA can prove that justice and football can exist on the same stage, even when the biggest names in the game are involved. The World Cup final may already be history, but the questions are still alive. And until FIFA delivers its final answers, this story is not over. So keep watching, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because when FIFA makes its next major move, we will be here to break down exactly what it means. Because in football, the final whistle does not always end the story. Sometimes, that is where the real story begins.